what are the biggest changes that you've seen in and around the conversation from ESG from the start of your career to where you are today?
And I think it's fair to say that ESG was rather a topic of specialists, and it has become now really core and central to the strategy and to everything we do. And I have to say, a big change I saw over the years, and you mentioned 37 years, which is very striking to me, is that we had a few financial crises over this period. And I have to say that very often the finance industry was at the origin of it. We saw a lot of excesses, risk-taking, short-term views, herd mentality. And recently, and with the last crisis with the pandemic, we saw a totally different attitude and change. First of all, the financial industry and banks were not at the origin of the crisis, but they were part of the solution. This has made a big difference in, of course, the perception of all our stakeholders on the essential role of banks. But it also has, I think, increased within banks the awareness about the fact that we are also an essential part of the solution to a sustainable development to face these challenges we have on fight climate warming and accompany the transition.
So in this recent crisis, what are sort of like the most remarkable and more definitive shifts that you've seen in the private sector towards ESG adoption, where you feel like this feels authentic, this feels sustainable and durable, this is going to make a difference? What kind of examples did you see that impressed you?
All actors, SMEs, large corporates, individuals, are really now embarking into this very important and deep transformation of our business models, of our society, of our economies. And the main driver, I think, is that we are facing the challenge of all times, the challenge of our generation, which is really the climate change and the environmental transition. And I think this has created a sense of urgency of all players, a common understanding that we are only going to be able to tackle this challenge if we do it all together. It's not just government or public authorities. The private sector has to really play a very important role.
So when you think about the kinds of leaders that you think can make this a reality in the private sector, like what sort of stands out to you in terms of the kinds of characteristics, the kinds of people that you think will be successful in implementing such wide-ranging change in their business models?
I think in terms of governance, this has become the CEO and the board topic. For sure, it's not the case of specialists or CSR departments. It means also that you make sure that you put in place the right organization and the right governance to make sure that ESG is embedded in your business strategy, at the heart of the strategy, that you allocate your capital to these priorities. It means also that you put in place the right incentives, because you cannot be measured only on P&L and the bottom line. You have to take into account other considerations and metrics, and we see more and more incentives and the compensation of senior leaders integrating ESG considerations, client satisfaction, employee satisfaction, impact on the transition. So it's your governance, your organization, it's your incentives, and it's also, making sure that although these metrics do not really exist in a standard way, but that you create also internally this alignment on some longer term goals on a purpose, and that you are able to hold people accountable in meeting these objectives, which are not your traditional quarterly P&L and traditional metrics.
What are sort of like the biggest misunderstandings that you come across? Like, you spoke before about like there's a certain investment that might be required as well. is the cost as high as people think? And is it actually, are we really looking at a negative impact on the business performance if we look at the quarters, for instance? Or is that not always the case? Like, what can you tell us about busting those myths a little bit around, ESG implementation for the private sector?
One of the biggest misconceptions is precisely considering that focusing on ESG and environmental or social impact will negatively impact your performance, or that it is a cost. Actually, I really believe that performance is driven by making sure that you take this very proactive and active role towards sustainability. And I'm absolutely certain that there is a perfect correlation between performance and having a positive impact and embedding sustainability in everything you do. And also, I think there is no way that you can attract talent if you are not serious about playing a meaningful role in this transition towards a more sustainable and inclusive world.
I think it is a fact that women, having had the opportunity for more recent years, I would say, to take leadership positions in either when it comes to the wealth of their families or when it comes to the businesses of their families, they've usually, to start with, received roles that maybe nobody else wanted. And I would include in that, I've had very many cases where, women have been adamantly put into the philanthropy corner or the charity corner in order to keep them busy. Of course, they've then done incredible things and have actually contributed massively to the business's success. But ESG felt a little bit like something like that initially. So I would say about 15, 20 years ago, maybe, when the topic was not as popular as it is today, a lot of women have taken up the helm, I feel like, and we've seen incredible stories of women who've then transformed their organizations. But from your point of view, is it like something that where you've seen a marked difference between how women approach this topic as business leaders as opposed to men? Or do you feel like it's more of just an organizational culture that dominates this conversation?
Women, when they become business leaders, they quite often are the first ones to really integrate ESG in their strategy, in their business. They are quite open about making sure that there is a purpose which is bigger than profit, that they really want to have a diverse and inclusive environment. And this is quite recent. I think for many years, women who arrived at the top, they were almost keen to make sure that people forget they are women and that they are a leader as another. And I see this change of female leaders who take into account the fact that being a woman is a different voice, which needs to be heard, that you have to come with your convictions, be quite open and bold about what you believe in. And they are very active in making sure that other women can succeed, can take these leadership roles, can be assertive, can take risks and contribute to this broader conversation, which is we need diversity, we need different perspectives to find the answers to the immense challenges we are facing. Environments which become much more diverse are overall environments where innovation and change are encouraged and long-term thinking is more present.
What would be your advice to these women that have made it into the room, but now would also like to have a voice?
So I think it's important to know that we are not alone, that women have to be more open in creating bridges, networks, relationships, and ask for support because definitely collective effort will be required to meet these challenges when we speak about ASG. And I think, women are quite good at building coalitions, at building consensus, at creating cooperation and common action. So I think, the world needs more women on leadership positions.
What are the tools that we can give the young people today in terms of their education, in terms of access, that you think can truly make them successful in the workplace and can truly allow them to achieve the goals that they have with regards to, improving everything about our planet?
I think one of the most important qualities young people should develop is adaptation skills and learning skills. I think we are in a world where uncertainty will be there. Changes are happening at a very fast pace. There are a lot of things where we don't have the answer. So more than acquiring skills and knowledge, which of course will be important and you will always have to develop, I think you have to develop a mindset of always learning, challenging yourself and adapting yourselves and be willing to embrace change and uncertainty because this is going to be, I think, the new normal.